Hello and welcome to another one-on-one science lesson by Johnny, and this is geography to be exact. And me and Mr. An, we are working on learning activity 3.3, immigration in Canada. Can you read it? Immigration explained.
Yes. Immigration has played a central role in shaping Canadian identity. As we know it today, how much do you know about immigration trend in Canada?
So shaping Canadian identity, which means much of Canada that we see today, it's basically made because of immigrant.
Yeah.
So basically, it's an immigrant country, of course, because European settlers, as we have learned from the previous learning activity, like 50 something 60% of them are like from First Nations, right? Did you remember that from yesterday?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so and then like 30 something is from what's that name of that big group that mixed between the First Nation and the native people?
Metis?
Métis, yeah, Métis. So basically, it's an immigrant country, just like America. To be exact, it's an immigrant country, just like America. And now something's on my glasses. I have to remove it. All right, now immigration in Canada. We will learn various issues related to immigration in Canada. Now, understanding immigration in Canada, broadly speaking, immigrant to Canada come into the country in three broad classes. So there are three ways, main ways, three broad classes. Can you read it? Can you read it, please?
Yeah. Family class for family
Reunification.
reunifications, family sponsorship.
So it means that basically if there's one person who is already American is Canadian, they can sponsor for their family to join with them in Canada. It's called family sponsorship. Đoàn tụ gia đình đó,
Hmm.
It's like that's often happens. Family class. Now economic class, please. Can you continue reading it? For those skills worker and people starting businesses in Canada. So basically, no country wants to have like people with low skills or people who
Oh,
doesn't work well. So they want skilled workers and people starting businesses in Canada, which mean people who are they have the money already.
hmm.
So the second one, it's like um, định cư kinh tế. It means like you have to invest some money to start a business in Canada, for example. Định cư theo kiểu mở doanh nghiệp, yeah. And skilled workers, lao động có tay nghề, skilled worker in Vietnamese, yeah. And people starting business in Canada. So refugee is the lowest one. Refugees,
Yeah. For asylum seeker who are
asylum
fleeing
seekers, người tị nạn, asylum seekers who are fleeing persecution in their home country, like because they are illegal in their country to do something, they did something bad, or maybe they didn't do something bad, but the law in their country prohibited them and they committed a crime, something like that. So they are
like they're too
fleeing
strict.
persecution. Yeah. Like for example, if politically speaking, if they are not in power anymore and their enemy is seeking to kill them, they can seek refuge in another country.
Yeah.
Like for example, this happens very often with people who are, previous governors, who are previous governors, and they don't want to get killed by their political enemies, or because they, let's say, refugees from the war, for example, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, all these countries that are ravaged by war, the people cannot live there anymore because it's so unsafe. They have to seek, asylum in other countries. Otherwise, if they stay in the country, it could be very dangerous. They could get killed anytime.
Yeah.
Imagine Afghanistan, the Taliban, yeah? Wait, is it Afghanistan or Iraq? Kabul. Oh, okay, of course, Afghanistan. So when the Taliban took over, like a few months ago, a lot of people they fled the country, right?
Yeah.
Because you know how they are a terrorist group, of course.
Terrorist.
And apparently, the Taliban they try to kill a lot of people who they deem like enemies, or who doesn't agree with their policies and viewpoints.
Hmm.
So a lot of people they have to flee from Afghanistan and they seek refuge. They become refugees in other countries, especially like European countries.
Hmm.
So it has created something called immigration crisis or refugee crisis in Europe in the last couple of months. It's not fun. Can you read the vast number of immigrants?
Yeah. The vast number of immigrants to Canada comes under these suspicious programs,
Specific programs,
specific programs, sorry.
family
Family
sponsorship.
sponsorship, designed for those who have immediate family in Canada already and will be sponsored by them.
Đoàn tụ gia đình. Bảo lãnh gia đình á. It's like family sponsorship means like someone already there in Canada and they have a husband or wife or children they want to bring to Canada. Đoàn tụ gia đình bảo lãnh. Yeah. Be sponsored by them. Có thể được bảo lãnh bởi họ. Can be sponsored by them. Startup visas. Designed for
Startup
those who...
visa,
Startup visas. Can you read it?
designed for those who start businesses and create jobs in Canada. Express entry, designed for people who are skilled worker.
Uh-huh.
Read the following background. Understand Canada immigration system. Canada immigrant system is a world leader and provide many opportunities for those who would like to come here.
Of course. That's why it's a hot destination for the last couple of years. It's easier than America somehow to get there, so that's why a lot of people aim to could just go there now.
Hmm. Every year, millions of people from around the world come to Canada to visit, work, or study temporarily. In addition, more than 300,000 people
More
are
than 300,000 people are approved.
to make Canada their permanent home each year. Under three broad
Categories:
category,
economic immigration, family
family
reunification,
and humanitarian consideration.
consideration. Humanitarian consideration means like we consider because it's human right to be protected, right? And if there are
Yeah.
refugees from the war, refugees from the countries, we will consider to shelter them in Canada. That's what is called humanitarian consideration. But of course, some cases will be refused. So we have to consider which case it's, you know, worth taking is humanitarian, nhân quyền, quyền con người, human rights, and then humanitarian. That doesn't mean that Canada offers a free pass to anyone. Of course it doesn't, of course.
That doesn't mean Canada offer a free pass to anyone. Whether you got a temporary protected status or no status in the United States, you're coming from any particular region of the world. There is a strict process in place. You might think that once you're in,
That's
but
not the
that's not
case.
just the case.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to remain in Canada, there are several
Several
important
important
steps
steps.
you must successfully proceed through in our immigration system. When you enter Canada irregularly outside an official port of entry, you are intercepted and arrested by a police.
Irregularly outside the official port of entry, which means if you don't come to Canada within like borders, like in airports or a checkpoint, something like that, and you enter it by like the forest entering the place. For example, if the police caught you, you're done. You're going to be kicked out of the country. That's what it means. Intercepted and arrested by the police. Of course, like for example, border jumping. People cross the border illegally.
Yeah.
If they jump through fences or they just go through the forest or something like that, and you get intercepted, stopped, and the police gonna arrest you. Of course.
You face a really you face a rigorous process to determine whether or not you have a
Legitimate
legitimate
refugee
refugee
claim.
according to Canadian and international law. This includes complete security and background check.
So they have to check who you are, of course, background check, and what family you're from, what's your status in your host country, what happened to you. Of course, because you are because you are crossing the border illegally, of course.
Hmm.
So you are like a risk to Canada. So basically, they have to do that. Background check, security.
There are no guarantee that you will return to be able to stay in Canada. If it's determined to protect, then the process to remove you from Canada is initiated. There are, however, many legitimate ways to come to Canada to visit, study, work, or live.
It means like once they determine that you are not in need of Canada's protection, which means you are rejected.
Oh,
The process to remove you, it means like you are on a process to get kicked out of Canada. Let's make it simple that way. There have many legitimate way to come to Canada to visit, study, and work or live. Of course, that's what many people have been trying to do. But the
but it's hard.
easiest, I have to tell you, the easiest way is to study. Because by studying, you're giving them money. You're giving the country, Canada, money. And you are helping people in Canada to have more work. And that means more money for them. So it benefits the country greatly. So that's why being students, it's the easiest way to get to Canada. For work, of course, it's a secondary option. If you are a skilled worker, they need you. If you're not skilled worker, they don't need you. That's the thing. And
Yeah.
also, if the unemployment rate is high, there's no way they're gonna need you. You know. So It's like easiest is study. The second in one is work. To visit, well, it's they will basically have to check if you really have a reason to come back to your country after you visit, or you're trying to stay in Canada after your visit.
Yeah.
Many people do that. So that's why they have to check everything clearly. Like they have to check whether you have a house or any assets in your home country or not. Because that are the reason that ensure that you will come back to your country after your visit, right? And you're not trying to
Mm.
illegally stay in Canada, right? You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Like if you have a house in Vietnam, say, and there's no reason for you to just try to stay in Canada because your house still in Vietnam, right? You still have an asset, you have money there. So that's what it means. Now, economic and family immigration program.
Economic and Family Immigration Program. First entry. The first step for most economic immigrant is to submit a profile under Express Entry.
Mhm.
In the profile, the person receives ranking point based on their language ability, education, skill, and experience every 2 weeks. The candidate with the most points are invited to apply for permanent resident.
Mhm.
Provincial Enrollment Program. Province except Quebec nominate the immigrant they would like based on criteria they need that address their own need.
Mhm.
Quebec selected skilled worker. The province of Quebec selects its own skilled worker. Startup visa program. Entrepreneur with business
Entrepreneur, like
idea.
people who own a business, or people who will open a business, or when they have a lot of money already. Yes, support an investor can become permanent residents and launch their business here. Of course, because if they own a business in Canada, they bring lots of jobs to the local people, and also they bring money to the country through taxes.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's a startup visa program.
Caregiver program.
Caregiver program. Individuals who have gained experience working in Canada providing in-home care to children or people with high medical needs can apply for permanent residence. Well, it means that if you are medical professionals, nurses, doctors, caregivers, and you have experience working in Canada already, then you can apply for permanent resident. But of course, they can always try to refuse you. Of course, there's no guarantee.
Mm. Yeah.
For caregiver program, it means you have already worked in Canada, so that's why you have gained experience.
Mm. Through the family class, Canadian citizen and permanent resident can sponsor a loved one to join them in Canada. This includes spouse and common law partner, dependent children, parent, and grandparent. Refugee settlement.
What?
Canada
Refugee
also has
resettlement.
resettlement,
Also has a proud
resettlement.
humanitarian traditions,
Hmm.
include resettling refugee from abroad, and in Canada as asylum system, those in well-founded fear of persecution, torture, or death. Hmm. But it has to be clear. Like for example, if you're running away from Taliban, for example, that is a very clear, well-founded fear of persecution, torture, death. But you have to basically understand that if there's too many people like that coming to a country, it produces a lot of problems for the country as well. So they have to put you in a camp first, and then consider every little cases. So it might take
Yeah.
years. It's not easy. And while in a camp, it's hard to basically work or have a basic acceptable life. So make no mistake about it, it's not easy.
Mm.
It's never been easy, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
Refugee resettlement. Huh.
Fear of persecution, torture, or death. While eligible asylum claimants can live in Canada while they wait for their claim to be decided.
Take years. A rejected claim means that they are expected to leave Canada or they will be removed by the police.
Well,
It's not fun. It's not fun to be removed by the police. Opportunities for
yeah.
living in Canada on a temporary basis. It means you're only staying there like for like a short time, amount of time. So that's why they say come to Canada the right way, not the wrong way. You don't want to come to a country the wrong way.
Yeah. Opportunity for living in Canada on a temporary basis. In addition to the opportunity to apply for permanent resident, there are also many avenues to come to Canada on a temporary basis as a tourist, worker, or student. Canada has one of the most generous programs in the world for international students. Our excellent academic institution currently hosts more than 400,000 international students, gain work
Including you.
experience,
Will
and
include you. It will include you soon.
work permit program. Upon graduation, can continue to work in Canada up to and continue.
Just don't come to Canada the wrong way. Basically, a lot of international students, after a long while, they decided to just try to stay in Canada, of course, because it's a good country. Of course, everyone tries to.
Yeah.
So that's why they say instead of like apply for permanent resident, you stay there forever. There's also many ways to come to Canada on a temporary basis, which means you stay there short term. For example, as tourist,
Tourists.
worker, or student. One of the most generous program in the world for international students. Mhm. Wow, that sounds very biased.
Yeah, very nice.
Very biased. Oh my god. Something.
Temporary worker are welcome. Temporary worker are each year welcome each year through Canada Work Permit program like student. And if worker gain their experience, they need to apply for Canada to then apply for a permanent resident.
Permanent resident. Work permit program. Of course, they are expats. You know what is called expats.
Uh,
EXPAT. 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 Expatriate. Basically, they are expatriate. Expats are people who are not working in their home country. They work abroad. They are called expats. Người mà đi nước ngoài lao động á. They're called expats. So of course, when you are expat in Canada, you gain experience working in Canada. So you can apply for permanent resident after a while. That's what it means.
cool.
But I mean, but this is only like theory. Thing can change very much within the next few years.
And get permission to hire worker other country for nearly any types of job, international mobility program. International Mobile Program to meet higher. International experience in Canada. Young people from country that Canada has agreed we can apply as agreement we come to Canada for a working holiday,
Hmm.
an internet internship, or an experience as a young professional.
Professional. They have a lot of programs.
Come to Canada the right way.
It's a vital part of a country, but they want the right people, of course. Who
Yeah, the
doesn't?
right people.
All the country, we want the right people, not criminals, not people who are troublemakers.
History, immigration in Canada. Our government approach to immigration has changed through its history. Watch this video with award-winning journalist the other Doug Sandberg. She watched summarize the main point he addressed about how Canada has historically limited immigration number and what needs to happen to ensure the population will economically flourish in the future. Alternatively, read this review of his book, Maximum Canada.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for that generous introduction, and thank you everybody for coming out to this beautiful hall tonight. Last time I spoke at CG it was in follows the open space, and I was doing my more typical routine, which is talking about the many other parts of the world where overpopulation is the much larger problem to be talking about. There really are very few countries in the world where underpopulation make any sense at all. Uh, it's a political reality in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and I don't think it could ever be concentrated anywhere else. We have plenty of countries where the devastation of population shrinkage is a major problem. And by the middle of this century, that'll be the majority of countries. But underpopulation is sort of a new concept here. Now, I'm going to do something that I haven't done in previous books I've written in giving talks, where I often show photos of interesting locations and so on. I'm actually going to read a few pages from this book, partly because it opens with a story that I think sort of sets the scene very well and helps explain where I'm coming from for this. And it's a story about my family in a chapter called The War Against
War
the
against the
Outside.
outside.
Around midnight, on an early winter evening, 180 years ago, my grandmother's great-grandmother stood in fury as a crowd of armed rebels forced their way inside her Brantford house, demanding the rifles and pistols she and her Welsh-born husband William had spent the day hiding. The couple had armed themselves that autumn. William had worked to organize a local militia with certain belief that they would soon be joining an all-out civil war over the size, composition, and purpose of Canada. 12 of them came down to us in the middle of the night, demanding arms. They had each suspended to their sides swords and rifles. They searched the house, but William, being a strong Tory, had the precaution to hide his guns and pistols. Catherine Lloyd-Jones, then 36, mother of 3, wrote her mother in England. They left disappointed, but they told us to beware of the rabble. As the men departed in frustration, William yelled after them that he would be joining the fight, not on their side. The couple knew these rebels, Canadian men in the nearby village of Scotland, men who had resided in Canada far longer than they had. Catherine denounced them and their fellow rebels as Americans, for she and other Tories saw these men's expansive democratic ideas, their support of public education, open borders, and elected governments as treasonous, foreign.
Wow, very conservative view.
The consequences of reducing their arms, Catherine wrote. Fancy me, close to William's elbow, pale as death in my nightdress, covered with cloak. I think I could almost have fired at them myself. They spent the next several weeks sleeping fully dressed, with weapons at their side, prepared to flee the house.
Wow, that's not a very comfortable position.
What a country this is, my dear mother, Catherine lamented to her overseas family. This has come to nothing but war, civil war, worst of all, being in danger of being shot by our neighbors. People are in danger of their lives unless armed with the pistols even to go a mile from their own home. Little did we anticipate a bloody war which will eventually take place. Catherine's fears were only partially realized. Civil violence, rifle battles, and a serious national crisis did ensue. The war that took place days after Catherine's letter, today known as the 1837 rebellions, would not prove as bloody or as lengthy as my ancestors feared. The reformers who launched and fought in the rebellion were tried and transported to Australia, forced to flee to the United States, or executed. What Catherine had in mind was the far larger but less violent civil war that had been underway as long as she lived in Upper Canada, one that had been launched by Canada's British occupiers almost the moment the War of 1812 had ended a quarter century earlier. It was a war to limit British North America's ambition, its size, and its purpose. While the enemies were often described as Americans, all of them were in fact long-standing residents and subjects of the Canadian colonies. The border with the United States had been slammed shut to migration after 1850. So the US-born families of Canada, who until the 1830s were the majority of Upper Canada's population, had lived there much longer than most British-born settlers. The colonial rulers did not hesitate to call this clash of loyalties a war, or to specify what it was they were fighting. Sir Francis Bond Head, Tory Lieutenant Governor of Upper Canada, had urged British Anglicans, among them Catherine and William, to emigrate to the colony after 1815 by telling them they'd be soldiers in, quote, a moral war between those who were for British institutions against those who were for soiling the empire by the introduction of democracy. Conflict involved much more than democracy versus British institutions, though. It was an all-out struggle to ensure that the emerging Canada would be a closed, ethnically homogenous colony whose political and economic function would be limited to the provision of raw materials to the imperial capital, and whose population would be restricted mainly to smallhold farming. This was a vastly different place from pre-1812 Canada. Though tiny and sparse, that earlier Canada had been defined by an ambiguous and open border, diverse immigration, cooperative relations with indigenous nations, free-flowing trade in goods, people, and ideas for the United States, all of which were now forbidden. This was a war against expansion and openness. Catherine and William saw their ideas triumph, though William would die years later when he fell off the back of a wagon. Canada's border would remain closed and tariff-walled for decades. Its immigration policies would allow only a certain sort of British person. Its economy would remain colonial, rural, and resource-based.
Wow, that's a lot. He's like reading the whole book for everyone, huh?
For the rest of the 19th century, much of the 20th, the country would fail to attract people, despite constant effort to do so. Underpopulation would become a constant and lasting problem. So that's my opening premise. A pile of letters from an ancestor of mine that had been passed from generation to generation in my family, which raised a sort of curious picture of Canada forming in the early 19th century, and it was part of a puzzle that had sort of mystified me during the decade and a half when I lived away from Canada in the United States. And when you live away from a country, uh, from your home country, you start to see it differently. You start to see what you love about it a lot more. It becomes clear that the people who come from that country are distinct sort of people.
And that's it.
And that's it. Should be that way.
Merit based immigration. Many people see Canada as a global leader, and its merit based system has been lauded by many as being equitable and fair to all. In this merit based system, immigration applicants are judged based on specific criteria, and if they meet this criteria, are eligible to apply under certain program. For example, the Federal Skilled Worker Program used six categories
When
when
determining
determining
eligibility,
language skill, education,
work
work
experience,
experience,
age, range, deploy,
range.
employment, and adaptability.
Applicants are given points based on the criteria in each of these categories. If they meet a minimum, they're 67 point,
Inequality
they
of
qualify
language.
for immigration.
Beloaded by many as being equitable and fair to all. It's a fair system based on points. Huh?
Mm.
Language skills, education, work experience, age, range, deploy, employment, and adaptability. So if you adapt well to environment and you have speak good language, and you have good education, it's very likely that you can be decided to stay there.
Mm. 1967, Canada became the first country in the world to adopt a merit-based immigration system. Skilled immigrants are valued over place of origin. Prior to 1967, people were not able to immigrate to Canada based on their country of origin. The merit system changed you can immigrate and contribute to a more multicultural and diverse population. The merit-based system is based on earning point in areas such as work skill, language ability in French and English, education, and family connection. A successful applicant must earn 67 out of 100 points to be eligible.
Eligible. Oh my god, it's even more than medical school. In medical school, I was there. 60% is a passing limit,
Oh my god.
and 67. But maybe they are not that. Maybe it's supposed to be that hard. Life isn't easy. Just deal with it.
Language skill out of 28 points. Education out of 25 points. Work experience out of 15 points. Age out of 12 points. Wait, why do you need age for the skill? Job offer top 10 point. Adaptability 10 point. Challenge include matching skill-based immigration with labor market, and expensive admission costs. First-person experience of immigration in Canada. What does immigration actually look like? Feel like? What's the short except in Canada experience with different people who have immigrated different lives?
It's a long process. Actually, I guess it took us 5 years to complete that process. And several times I thought, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing to do?
There's so much happening during that time frame that you're preparing to go when you take the decision, you know what, I'm going. That when finally it comes, it seems like it's too soon, it's too fast, or I guess you always have that doubt that am I making the right decision?
I left Vietnam on a boat with many people, and before that, I made many attempts to leave my country. I think it's 11 times, but the 12th time is the successful one.
I made a decision. I want to come here. And so when I made a decision, I quit all of what I had in China. That means I have no way to go back. So I made it very clear. I said, whatever happened, I will survive.
So there is this detachment feeling that is inside you that you feel because now you're losing. You feel like you're losing something, and then the harbor just disappears. And now what? You're all by yourself on this boat with your family.
Cette journée-là, ce matin-là, ma famille est venue m'ont accompagné à l'aéroport de Casablanca. C'était, il y avait un silence dans la voiture. C'était juste les yeux qui parlaient.
Now, the first time I ran to Canada, it was in '67, and I was stopped at the border in Vermont, Blackpool, because they said, well, how much money do you have? And I had $39, I remember. And they said, how do you expect to live in Canada on $39? I said, I don't know. Do you know anybody? I don't know anybody in the entire country. No. They turned me back.
Of course.
À l'âge de 27 ans.
27, first time.
Announced there is some kind of emergency, so we cannot go to Canada. So all flights are to England. Who can forget that date? That was 9/11.
Oh,
September
that was the day.
That was the day when we were at Heathrow Airport
9/11 of America, you know.
from Pakistan to Canada.
Arrivé. Arrival. Arrivé.
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 I mean, the French language sounds so fancy to my ears, I think. But it's not easy to learn.
Yeah. My first day, 15 minutes. Can I take a break for a bit? Oops, not working. And if you work on infographic in both Unit 2 and 3, there are many online infographic makers you can make. or search for other you might wish to use, ensure that you can share your final infographic, either a digital link or a link with your teacher for marking.
Oh,
Take a break for a bit.
moment. Okay, sure.
Yeah,
All right.
refugees.
Okay. Where are we now? Okay, so there you go. So let's continue with this one.
3.4 Refugee in Canada. Push-through factor. As we learned in the previous activity, the immigration process is critical to Canada economic and social fabric. In this learning activity, you will focus on the global refugee crisis and its impact in Canada and beyond. There are many reasons people may choose to leave their country of origin. These are referred to as push factor.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, people are attached to immigrate to certain country for
Specific reason. Of course, there are reasons why they're gonna get out of their country. These are referred to as the pull factor. Pull and push. Push out, pull and pull in. Just remember that. Push out, pull in.
push out.
So push out their country or pull into another country. That's what it means. Categorize the following reason as push or pull. Alright, let's, okay, the push and pull. Just push mean push out of their country. Pull mean pull in to another country. Just remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, let's take a quiz to figure out to categorize the following reason as push or pull. Try it.
Fish is war
Okay, let's say
push.
were a push or pull factor.
What? So
Like, is this a
war.
war in their country? Is it pushing them out of the country or they pull them into a country?
Oh, it's most likely
Of
pull.
course, it's a push factor. Of course, they push them out.
Yeah.
Religious persecution. A push or pull factor. So religious persecution means like you get persecuted or you get judged by the religion you follow. Or people don't treat you nicely because you follow a different religion or something like that.
Push.
It's terrible.
Our job a push or pull factor.
You answer this?
Yeah. No. Pull because you're like, if you like this
You're
job.
pulled into that.
Yeah. Is a strong education system a push or a pull factor? If it's interesting, so are human right a push or pull factor?
I'm not so sure what they mean by human right. It means like, are the human rights being respected more in that country? So it's a push, it's a pull country, right? It's a pull factor, right?
Yeah.
Human right.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a natural disaster.
Not to push
Of course, it's push
because it's
because you don't want natural disaster to happen. Just get out.
in your notebook. Expand on your answer by explaining the thinking behind choice. Why each following a proof push factor.
explain your thinking behind each choice. Why are you following a push factor? Oh, this one, it's like you have to write it down on your notebook, like why you think these 6 things are push or pull factor. Please do it.
Homeland to
You're talking about
persecution.
refugees, right? The refugee crisis, the Canada response. So, the people
Refugee,
have been forced to flee. Okay, just read, can you?
yeah, refugees are people who have been forced to flee their homeland due to persecution or war or violence. Unlike other immigrants, these asylum seekers are forced to have their home country leave their home country due to danger or threats they immediately face. Also, they usually cannot safely and easily return to their home country. As the number of people on the move increase, refugee and
Increases, refugee and immigration issues become increasingly important to understand and articulate. Articulate means like you get a very clear understanding first, and you have to act based on that knowledge quickly. I mean, articulate into like words, small little words. Just say understand and comprehend it deeply, understand
yeah,
deeply. Okay, language matters. Okay.
yeah. Hmm.
Okay, language matters.
How we talk about refugee and migrants is important so we can have respectful and informed dialogue around policy and law. Check out these notes blog posts about the importance of using the correct terminology and discuss
These are
them.
blocks that you need to
Yeah,
read later. Mm-hmm.
the recent debate over word choice has taken a turn that undermine humanitarian principle and cloud the view.
How immigration is unfolding. It talks about like, okay, refugees are also migrant, and all migrant matters, so you cannot just ignore them. Of course, because they migrate to another country as well.
Yeah,
Okay, so okay, I think it's quite long, so maybe you should read it on your own when you have time. It's actually quite a good read to just read through it
yeah.
and think about it. So, what is the difference between refugee, a migrant, and asylum seeker? Here, they ask like 3 different things, the crucial differences. What do you think the differences between these 3? Refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants?
Refugees like they have to they're forced to like leave their country.
Because of war, persecutions, and violence.
Violence.
But migrant, they have
And
a choice, right? They have a choice.
yeah,
They can either go in or out. It's their choice. They are not forced. How about asylum seekers?
I think it's asylum seeker is a place where you can they're the people who's like
It's
what's it
quite similar
called?
to refugees, but let's search for the difference between asylum seeker and refugees. You can search for it on Google. I'm sure there's like definitions about it somewhere and differences. Can you search for it? Asylum seekers and
Yeah.
refugees differences.
Uh, a refugee is granted uh, refugee status while still outside the union,
They're outside what?
yeah, from their country or something.
Okay.
An asylum seeker is granted asylum status after entering this country or while seeking admission at port or entry.
So one
So
it's
they like want to
like
go to,
out, one is like in already.
yeah.
Okay. One's out of the country, one's in the country already. Okay, that sounds about right.
Hmm.
So, most asylum seeker, they ran already to the host country and they're just waiting to be accepted.
Yeah.
But refugees, well, they haven't actually gotten inside the country yet. But they're just outside the border.
Hmm.
That's what it means.
Think about it. Personal and institutional blog have begun to play an increasingly important role in the media landscape as well. Blogs are typically written in less formal language and may weave in personal opinion or individual writer inspiration. They also tend to be housed on websites that are updated frequently. Are there any
Mhm.
other similarity in style content to these blogs? Definition. Vocabulary check. Before you continue, ensure that you have a strong understanding of the
Understanding the
following
following
items.
terms. Must
Refugee.
understand like these terms: refugees, for someone forced to leave the country to escape war, persecution, or natural disasters or violence.
Hmm.
Người tị
Migrant.
nạn, người tị nạn, refugee.
Person who move from one place to another, especially to find work or better living condition. A person who comes to live permanently in a foreign country. Emigrant. A person who leave their own country to settle permanently in another.
E mean out, X. E stands for X, which means out.
X. X.
Emigrant and immigrants are different, opposite. Emigrant means moving out. Leave their own country to settle permanently in another. Emigrant. Người xuất cư mean out. And nhập cư is like immigrant. Emigrant is xuất cư, yeah. Nhập cư, xuất cư, yeah, they're the opposite of each other. Emigrant and immigrant. But they're all migrants.
Yeah.
Asylum.
Shelter or protect from danger. The protection granted by a country to someone who has fled their native country. Asylum seeker. A person who has left their home country as a political refugee and is seeking asylum in
Asylum in
another.
another. So basically, asylum seeker are already in a host country, while the refugee is not yet inside a host country.
Canada refugee policy.
Mm-hmm.
This screenshot of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweet in January 2017.
He's still there in office. And the height was some had deemed a global refugee crisis. 2017. Oh. The tweet. Wow, they put his tweet basically on a learning website there. To those fleeing persecution, terror, or war, Canadian will welcome you regardless of your fate. Diversity is our strength. Welcome to Canada. Well, it's the opposite of what Donald Trump said. President of the United States. Donald Trump spoke out about tightening up refugee processes in the United States. Of course, the tweet ultimately generated people who phrase it, "Wow, that's great!" and criticism for Trudeau. Of course, because if you're too open, your country will be basically harboring a lot of weird people or maybe criminal as well. You never know. You know? You cannot be too open. It's your home after all. Okay, brainstorm some reason people would agree or disagree with this tweet. Can you?
Yeah. Would be welcome.
Not all will be welcome. We don't welcome criminals. We don't welcome troublemakers. We don't welcome people who cannot work, you know.
Yeah.
Because they produce, what's it called? It creates a kind of stress on the health system of a country. If you have old people coming to a country, they need treatment, of course. And if they cannot pay for themselves, the health system, the tax system, have to pay. And that creates a lot of stress on a country. You don't want it, of course. I'm just being very honest. You don't want people who will eat up your resources, right? You don't.
International refugee policy. Immigrating as a refugee is different from other forms of immigration. Different from other forms of immigration. Though the refugee determination process is different in each country, the underlying basis of all refugee policy lie in the United States, 1951 Refugee Convention. Yeah.
Of course, what legal responsibility receiving nations have for protecting them? Of course, you have to protect people. It's human right. But you cannot let refugees go rampage in your country and cause problems. Of course not. So receiving nation or host nation have the legal responsibility, to protect them. Of course, you protect them, but you can also refuse them too. Of course. Or you can agree to grant them entry into your country. It's not like they come to your door and you let them die in front of their door. It's like that. You're not like that, They come to your door, you have the responsibility to protect them from harm first, but you also have the right to let them in or out of your house. It's up to you. It's like that, understand what I mean, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what they said here. what legal responsibility the receiving nation have protecting them. So if you don't want them in your country yet, put them into camps, refugee camps.
CLA. Use one of the note-taking strategy that you have learned. Just go for art, or nail notes, or mind map. Summarize key points from this overview. A lot. Visualize refugee flow. Take a look at this data visualization from the New York Times.
Okay, visualizing refugee flow. Okay.
Use
In the
those.
last few years, there have been a lot of war, minor wars, civil wars in some countries in the world, and of course, there's a refugee flow to Europe. There's a refugee
Oh,
flow to many richer countries, and also naturally, people want to migrate to like richer country to get jobs and better life. So there's a refugees flow, like Syrian displacement. As you know, there's a war in Syria. Overlooked continents, like what I'm talking about, like people want to go to America, Canada, Australia, England, something like that, Europe. That's overlooked continent. Main destinations. And in the developed world, of course, most people want to go to developed world. I mean, majority.
are
Okay, can you
made
say again? Can you say again? Difference between refugee and migrant and asylum seeker. Can you say again?
uh, so when a particular group is labeled migrants or refugee, for example, it matters. Assumptions are made based upon the label given,
Mm-hmm.
and certain rights
Certain
are
rights are assigned for that group. So that if you are a migrant, you have certain rights. But if you are a refugee, you are given less rights than immigrants, for example. Of course, as a refugee, you're not allowed to work. I mean, or maybe I'm wrong, but they have received less rights than migrants, because your status is like lower, of course. Even though you're still protected, but your status is like lower. Okay.
Asylum seeker and migrants, and why it's better when how each term is used.
Okay, refugee.
Refugee. A refugee is any person who has been forced to flee their country due to war, persecution, or because their home government cannot or will not protect them. When a
In some
refugee
cases, their home government even prosecute them or try to hunt them down, like the Taliban, for example.
hmm,
When a refugee flees, they are registered with an official agency, such as a government of the United Nations, which allow them to gain access to state and international aid and assistance. Because if they don't sign up, if they don't register, they will not receive any help at all. They will be like, alone in the dark, alone at sea or something. Like what happened during the 1975 to 1980s, 1892. Sorry, from 1975 to 1982, there's a huge incident that's called the boat people. You know about it, right? The boat people.
yeah,
The people, like 4 million Vietnamese, trying to flee the country because they fear that the new communist government is going to prosecute them all. You
hmm,
know.
yeah,
So, but the problem is, 1 million Vietnamese died at sea due to sharks, drowning, pirates, robbery, pirates, something like that.
right?
So they basically, a lot of them, they got picked up by international ships, American ships, warships, something like that. But a lot of them are not that lucky. So 1 million died in among the 4 million people fleeing country. That's a
That's
lot.
true. Hmm.
So that's a very sad piece of history for Vietnam.
Oh,
So if you flee and you register like for a foreign government or a United Nation, you will receive some kind of aid, international aid and assistance. But if you don't, you won't get aid at all. So, mhm.
refugees have
Okay,
legal
have legal
protection
protections.
granted by United Nations Refugee Agency, or UNHCR, including economic and social rights, and the ability to bring immediate family with them. Every refugee is initially an asylum seeker, although not every asylum seeker became a refugee. An internally displaced person, or IDP, is similar to a refugee in many respects, except they did not cross an international boundary
Internally
within.
displaced person. Similar to refugee in many respects, except they did not cross an international boundary when they fled war, persecution, or natural disaster.
They also did not enjoy the same legal protection or have access to the same resources as refugees. Many of the families we serve in Iraq and Syria are technically considered international displaced persons.
No, no, internal, not international.
Oh,
Internally displaced
internal,
person. So
internal.
basically, these people, they haven't been able to cross the border yet. They're still in the same country, but they are not in the place they should be. You know,
Yeah,
they
internally
did
known
not
as.
cross the border into another country. They're just inside their own country, but still, they're not at the place they should be. They do not enjoy the same legal protection. They do not have access to the same resources as refugees. They're just inside their own country. They're not yet out. You know. So imagine a situation where the Taliban, for example, they're trying to hunt down a lot of people of Iraq. I mean, of Afghanistan people. But a lot of people who haven't been able to cross the border into another country, they are still inside of Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
So they are called IDP, internally displaced person. When they cross the border, they became something else. They became a refugee. You understand the difference, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't crossed your border into another country yet, you are still IDP, internally displaced person. Once you cross the border, you become a refugee.
Policy,
Okay,
yes.
asylum seeker.
Some seekers are not officially designated refugee, but they have appealed to achieve refugee status. They are leaving their country of origin in order to escape war or persecution due to their nationality,
Nationality,
race,
nationality.
nationality, sorry, race, religion, or political affiliation. Under recent decision made by U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions,
Attorney General Jeff Sessions. His name is
Attorney
Jeff Sessions, and
Jeff
he's an
Sessions,
Attorney General. So basically,
mm,
a very big lawyer inside of in the U.S.
mm,
Gangs and domestic violence are no longer a reason one can seek asylum in the United States. So it means if you got beaten up by your wife or husband, and if you are threatened by a gang, like criminals, you are no longer allowed to seek asylum in the United States. So if your husband and wife beats you up, you cannot just apply for, you cannot apply as an asylum seeker in America. It's funny. Okay, even if possible. I'm so savage. Oh my god. Sometimes I'm so savage. I mean, I turn the thing into jokes to make it easier to understand, but a lot of the time I'm so savage. Oh my god.
to violence under current U.S. law. None of these people qualify for asylum because the government does not acknowledge it to be a credible or reasonable
Reasonable
fear.
fear. So it's according to the U.S. law, because a lot of people are trying to, made up reasons. So that's why they're making it more strict to get it to the U.S. Because if they're not strict enough, Mexican would just fled to the country of America, like you know they will fled to the country of America like in hordes, like so much people and a lot of people, and they bring a lot of problems too to the U.S. That's why I said, okay, dire economic circumstances. It means like they're so poor and they cannot support themselves. You cannot just seek asylum in America because of that reason. Because America will no longer shelter you if you are too poor, cannot support yourself, or if your family is threatened by the gang, or if your wife or husband beats you up. You cannot just use that as a reason to seek asylum anymore in America. That's what it means. So all these people will be rejected. All rejected. Sad for them.
Migrants. Okay. Migrants are people who are leaving their home country and pursuing residency in another place, generally to find work, seek education, or to be reunited with.
Reunited with their families.
Unlike refugee, migrant can return home to their country if they wish.
Mhm.
Migrant is a difficult label. However, it's easily abused or misunderstood. Many people in Central America face extreme poverty and lack resource.
such as food, shelter, access to public services to meet their basic needs. By Central America, they mean like people from Peru, Mexico, from Cuba, from places like that, Central America. Of course, a lot of people there are just terribly poor, or they lack the basic resources to take care of themselves.
People,
What do you say?
I'm just yeah.
Migrants, huh?
It's a difficult label, however, it's easily abused or misunderstood. Many people in Central America face extreme poverty and lack of resources, just such as food, shelter, access to public services to meet their basic needs. They are labeled migrants even though they have same limited option a refugee may have.
No. Sorry. Okay, let's continue.
It could be a mother fleeing Guatemala because of a horrific gang violence.
Of course, Guatemala region, a lot of gangsters and that are in those region, horrific gang violence.
The two situations are not comparable, but currently the same label would be applied in both cases. It matters what we use, what term we apply, change our discussion. It creates a narrative. It can create fear or evoke sympathy. But what matters even more is that we not lose sight of the humanity of people. No matter what label is applied, each person has a name, a face, a family, or a history. When we bury people in ritual here, when we dehumanize with a term, we strip others of dignity, we change the way they are seen and heard and loved. But when we pull off the mantle of label, when we allow people to move past assumption, past false narrative, they are able to reclaim their history, their humanity. We allow them to rise.
Okay, that's
And
all. That's, I think. All right.
yeah,
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Oh,
we just
consolidation already. Should be the last. Okay. Notebook.
these are like blogs that I can read later on.
Yeah, you
So,
can read later. Please do, because it allows you to have a clear understanding of what's the problem with refugees, a problem with immigrants, immigrant or emigrant, or migration in general. But I think that's all. That's all. Refugee in Canada. I mean the other part you can do it yourself, I think.
yeah.
So I'll see you maybe tomorrow then. Okay,
Okay.
tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow maybe we do 3.5. I wonder what it would be. Okay, see you then. Okay, that's the end of my videos. Please like, share this video with your friends, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and press on the bell button next to the subscribe button so you can get notified about my new uploads, okay? You can also press follow my Facebook, but please don't add me on Facebook as friends, okay? Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi nha. Các bạn hãy nhấn vào like, chia sẻ video này bạn bè các bạn. Nhấn vào nút đăng ký kênh YouTube mình và nút cái chuông kế bên cạnh cái đăng ký kênh đó, để mà các bạn sẽ được thông báo về những video mới nha. Các bạn cũng có thể nhấn vào nút theo dõi Facebook mình, nhưng nhớ đừng kết bạn Facebook mình nha. Thank you and see you. Bye.